Hi, my name's Catherine and I am a flower farmer here in the Scottish borders in the United Kingdom. I live in a town called Peebles, which is surrounded by rolling hills and is very close to the River Tweed. And my 1 acre garden sits just 5 minutes walk away from the centre of the town. So although we're in a rural community, my actual garden is located inside a town, which is quite unusual for a flower farmer. I don't use the whole of my 1 acre of ground. My children would never let me get away with that. I have to keep some lawn for sledging and rounders. But over the years I've built it up to 3 main flower patches, which I look after myself here during the day when they're at school. It all started off as a hobby. I was an NHS dietitian before I had my children and loved my job there. My intention was always to return to this once I'd had my children, but we moved up from England to Scotland and I found that I was quite far away from the local hospitals by then for work. And when my daughters were born, I took a career break and had my 3 little girls. I started off growing flowers 7 years ago when my youngest daughter was 2 years old. At the time I was swithering between returning to the NHS as a dietitian or thinking about a different career I could do so that I could be a mum at home for my girls as much as possible. I watched a programme called the Great British Garden Revival back then, which was talking that week about flower farming and how it had started to decrease with the imports that you could get for florists from abroad now, and how it was starting to come back again. There was a few people starting to grow flowers again in Britain. And I was really inspired by what I saw there, and I wanted to add colour to my garden. It was a very green garden when we bought it with not many flowers. So I started to dig up the back garden with no previous experience whatsoever. I had lots of failures that year, including slugs and rabbits decimating most of what I'd grown. But slowly I learned more from reading as much as I could and from talking to other flower farmers. I joined Flowers from the Farm, which is a brilliant organisation where we support each other in our flower growing. And slowly this hobby of mine to see if I could start growing flowers has turned into a really fulfilling career for me. I now grow flowers for weddings, for local customers and for florists. And I've probably got to the maximum of what my garden can do now. I have 3 main flower patches and that's probably as much as I want to do when I'm working on my own. It's a full-time career. I spend 7 days out here in the garden and I am not very good at putting my work away at the end of the day. It's difficult to do that when it's right in front of you and you love what you are doing. So my YouTube channel is all about sharing my flowers and also sharing any gardening knowledge that I have gained. Most of it has been from trial and error, and I am definitely not a horticultural expert with any qualifications, but I have learned what works well for me here in Scotland in my exposed and wet and rainy site, and it's a lovely thing to be able to do, to share what you've learned with others. Flowers from the Farm was really good for me when I first started it, and a lot of flower farmers that have been doing it for longer than me were really lovely in sharing their knowledge, and it's something I'd love to be able to pass on now too. If there's anything you would like me to do a video on, please just get in touch via the comments section after a video. It would be great to hear from you, and if you would like to subscribe, that would be fantastic as well. I'd love to have you along following my flower farming journey.